We want Bama. We want Bama. We want Bama. No, seriously, I'll tell you exactly what we learned this past weekend as we get ready for the game with the Alabama Crimson Tide. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, the Rebels play the Alabama Crimson Tide Saturday at 2:30 Central. The next evolution of an explosive offense should be on tap for all of us to witness. Catch every play on the Rebels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on channel 191 or on the SXM app, searching Ole Miss Rebels. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and we're going to talk about what we learned from the Georgia Tech game, but I do want to let you know this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the official sportsbook of Locked On. You can make every moment more. Now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right. Fun game against Georgia Tech and a really fun second half as the offense kind of started to get unlocked a little bit. But, you know, they got off to a little bit of a slow start. We talked about the challenge that this game would provide for Ole Miss for 3 or 4 days. I mean, we were on it most of the week last week, and the team did come out a little bit sluggish. There was questions about Quinshawn. He was not 100% healthy. I don't think anybody needs to put too much stock in the rushing performance last night, because if Quinshawn was 100% healthy, he would have gone over 100 yards. I have no doubts about that. Even that said, the defense is keying on him. But the main takeaway that we can from last night, or not last night, Saturday night, what we learned is Jaxson Dart is not only the best player on the team, but he's also the most important, the MVP. That kind of goes without saying. We're going to talk about how this more and more looks like a second half football team in 2023. And third, good teams win and great teams cover. This is a game that I said most of the week that I would have been happy with Ole Miss winning by 1 point. It ended up being a blowout. And there's some numbers in the second half that is kind of impressive. And if this keeps up, Ole Miss is going to win a lot of football games this year. But we're going to start with Jaxson Dart. And I've been on the Jaxson Dart train probably since July. When everybody started talking, hey, this guy looks different. This guy looks like interesting. And everybody was still on the Spencer Sanders train a little bit, and the Walker Howard train, and all of that. Really good players. I'm not taking away from any of those young men, but Jaxson just kind of looked different. And over the process of what's going on, you could see his development. And this was not the best passing game, although Jaxson did have several drops. Michael Trigg had a bad drop on fourth down. Honestly, that may have been the nail in the coffin of Michael Trigg. If you look at Lane Kiffin's reaction after that ball was dropped, that's not good. Jordan Watkins had a drop, but he made up for it with a long touchdown later. The point is these numbers probably should have been a 13 or 14 for 18 for about 300 yards. That's actually the type of day he had. But think about 10 completions, averaging 25 yards per completion. That's absolutely nuts. But he had the long explosive pass to Dayton Wade. He had the long touchdown to Jordan Watkins. He completed a 25-yard pass to Quinshawn Judkins. The first play of the game was to Aiden Williams. Was a big play down the sideline. So you can see how Jaxson throwing the ball was a little bit of a weapon. But what made him different in this game was the fact that he ran the ball so well. This was a game, I compared this to the Matt Corral Auburn game from 2021. The difference in that game is that Matt was hurt, obviously. But you still have the same situation with these skill players not being there and having to figure out how to win a game. And Jaxson Dart just kind of put the team on his back and said, let's go. Let's go. And we're going to get into Jaxson Dart's zones through 3 games this season, which it's pretty impressive indeed. But let's remember with Jaxson what exactly we have here. Every situation to where he's been challenged to do something, he's done it at a fairly quick rate. Every competition that he has been in at quarterback, and this is the third one he has won. This is my theory, the reason I bring all of this up. I think this quarterback competition that Lane Kiffin did was for Jackson's benefit. We were wondering, is he doing this for Spencer? Is he doing this all because? No, I think this makes a better player from Jaxson Dart come out, the competition. The moment you tell him he can't do something or something can't be done, he does it at a level exceeding what you were expecting. That's been Jaxson Dart's time at Ole Miss, just a slow growth. And he gets better literally every single snap. And because of that, once we got the air raid ethanol out of the tank last season and he could actually focus on being a quarterback, and we talked about how toolsy he was, this became an unbelievably easy transition for him. Honestly, Jaxson is looking a lot like Matt. And I don't know if there's any way that anybody can say anything any different. The difference between him and Matt Corral, though, is that Jaxson Dart has him by about 20 pounds. He's got the mass to handle it. I mean, the other difference is that 68-yard run against Georgia Tech, Matt Corral probably scores there. But, okay. What you have essentially is a better passing version of Tim Tebow. I know that is absolutely a weird comparison, but it is something I thought of during the Georgia Tech game last night. Jaxson Dart is the physical run presence in short yardage. We've got to do that. It's got to be used. It's important. Everybody's keying on Quinshawn. You need somebody that can get that 1 yard, and the player that looks like he can do it, and he is the physical runner, is Jaxson Dart. In a lot of ways, he is Tim Tebow. I compared which quarterback that Jaxson Dart actually reminds me of. And honestly, this is going to be silly, but it's almost like a Dak Prescott a little bit. The physical running, the passing, and whenever he does it, it unlocks the whole offense. And, I'm just trying to think of a comp. Just put a comp down in the video description below. And we'll see what's going on, because I see a little Tebow in his game. I see a little Dak in his game. The physicality running the quarterback is interesting. Honestly, another thing, and this is a controversial thing that we'll talk about in the offseason someday, if Robert Lane was born in 2017 or playing in 2017 instead of 2004, Robert Lane would have been this as well. The quarterback position, Robert was just before his time. So it's interesting. The most important, most improved, the best player on the football team is Jaxson Dart. And going into Bryant Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, is there anybody going to doubt that he's going to show up for that moment? There's been no moment that has been too big for this kid. He has risen to the occasion. I am yet to see a moment where this kid is rattled, where this kid is just out of his element. Now, I've seen him improve, and he needed to improve because, what is he, 19 years old right now? But he's just slowly getting better. And in this second year under Lane Kiffin is just just deadly. And whenever you look at the fact, like, let's bring up his zones real quick. These are Jaxson Dart zones, and he struggled in the middle of the field between the numbers, in that middle tic-tac-toe zone. Right now, he's 12 of 16, 291 yards, 5 touchdowns, an interception that was not his fault, 130 NFL passer rating. If you look at the deep middle, which was his second weakest spot, he's 2 of 3, 102 yards, 1 touchdown, 149 NFL passer rating. His weakest area is probably due to the fact that there is no Zachary Franklin out there. That wide receiver, there's kind of a black hole. He's 1 of 6 from 1 to 20 yards out to the right. To the left, he's fine doing that. That's where Trey Harris has played. So, if anything, this lets you know the importance that Zachary Franklin might have on this offense and the versatility that it could have. I'm extremely excited about what Jaxson can be. I think he's the best quarterback in the SEC. I don't think it's particularly close. I mean, Spencer Rattler has played pretty well. Jaden Daniels had an unbelievable game at Mississippi State. I don't think either one of them are as good as Jaxson Dart. But the next 2 weeks, actually, we'll say 3 weeks, because after the Alabama and the LSU game, that Arkansas game kind of gets interesting. But after that, you will see a separation. And after that, we will know if Jaxson Dart is just a very good quarterback, if he is the top quarterback in the SEC, and if he's a Heisman candidate. After the next 3 weeks, we will have the answer to that question. Anyway, I do want to let you know that today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, whenever I got out of the military about 20 years ago, and, I did AFN stuff, did radio stuff, got out, went to Ole Miss, and that's how I started my career that led to right here, was that time in the military. But getting out of the military was a tough decision. And anytime you make a change like that, it's pretty interesting. And there's nobody really to talk to. Sure, they had counselors and things like that on base, but it wasn't exactly like what BetterHelp can offer and what mental health is like today. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's kind of work it. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out that brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. That is a cool feature, because anytime you have a therapist, you need to be able to trust that what they're telling you is the right thing. If you have doubts about that, you need to move on. So get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnCollege today for 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnCollege. College football season is here, and this season, Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Fantastic show, everybody. Everybody needs to be watching this. This is better than Big Noon Kickoff. This is better than Game Day. This is a fantastic way to start your college football weekend, and it's on Friday. Each Friday, Locked On will go live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel, including this one. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every single day. Find Locked On College Football Kickoff every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On YouTube channel. You will not want to miss it. All right. So we talked in the first segment about Jaxson Dart, and honestly, I could do every episode from now until the end of the season. I don't know if I will talk enough about Jaxson Dart and the way he is playing. He is playing at a level that is almost transcendent in Ole Miss sports. He's playing at that Matt Corral level, that Chad Kelly level. That is the level that Jaxson Dart is clicking at right now. And with Quinshawn being what it was, and we told you it might be down, it might look a little different this year, and it's probably beyond what we thought. That had to be made up somewhere. And where it's being made up with is Jaxson Dart just kind of being the dude and putting the team on his shoulder and saying, let's go. But looking at this team, if you want to talk about things that we learned against Georgia Tech, more and more this looks like a second half team in 2023. And that is so weird So weird to think about an Ole Miss person saying that this looks like a second half team. Absolutely nuts. We've seen Ole Miss get to the leads and just kind of fade as the game goes on, or maybe the game gets a little hairy at the end. That's kind of the lifestyle that Ole Miss fans have grown up with and grown accustomed to. But this is a product of that depth and that roster and that talent that I've been preaching about for 6 months. And that allows you to be a better second half team, because when everybody else gets a little tireder, you kind of keep going. It's what makes Alabama, it's what makes LSU, it's what makes Georgia so good, is the fact that they can do that. Now, Ole Miss is kind of in that club as well. And it's pretty fantastic. We have a graphic right here, and this is from the Ole Miss official stats. These are the score by periods right now. Ole Miss and their opponents in there. Ole Miss in the first quarter is outscoring their opponents 45-14. In the second quarter, it's 13-13. That's problematic, and that's probably what they need to work on. But in the third quarter, it's 49-7. In the fourth quarter, it's 51-16. Ole Miss is outscoring their opponents in the second half of football games through 3 games 100-23. The defense has given up roughly the same amount of points in the first and the second half. Okay. They've given up 27 and 23 for 50 points total. But Ole Miss is right at about 50 points per quarter. This is in 3 games. With the exception of the second. And this plus minus might be the best in the country. Okay. And this is with playing a ranked team on the road, a ranked team that beat South Alabama, that beat the brakes off Oklahoma State, by the way. They beat Oklahoma State 33-7. Tulane beat that team by multiple scores, and Ole Miss beat that team. So I think what we're learning is this Ole Miss football team is pretty good, but the second halves are important because of the depth, the quality of the coaches. Whenever you have somebody that can make adjustments like Lane Kiffin offensively, and somebody that can make adjustments like Pete Golding defensively. Listen, it's not much. And most of the scoring happened by Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, I think, scored 2 touchdowns to make this a little bit close. But the second half, the defense is giving up less points and the offense is scoring a lot more. The adjustments in the game are at a very, very high level. This kind of stuff, this is how you win football games. The stuff that people complain about and they pine about. Now, granted, there are some fans that are going to look at it as like, oh, the offensive line isn't good enough. And they're going to find something, because in sports, that's the beauty of it. There's always something. But if you allow yourself to see the positives of what's going on, you'll see an Ole Miss team that is performing fairly admirably. Over 50 points a game, giving up somewhere in the neighborhood of 13, 14, and Alabama coming in. They're struggling offensively. There's a chance that you get in there and the helmet beats you. We all remember this. We've seen it. We've all seen it. Eli walked into that place and walked out 42-7 loser in a game where Ole Miss had the better team. We saw Deuce get absolutely boat raced, like Sean Alexander just scored another touchdown in that game, because you walk in the helmet and the environment, and Alabama parading out all those championships. They can mentally beat you if you allow it to happen. And that has happened more times than not. Most of the situations, Ole Miss has less talent than Alabama. Ole Miss probably has less talent than Alabama now. But what Ole Miss does have that Alabama does not have, and I've already, obviously, everybody can hear, I've turned the page. What you can see is that Ole Miss has a better quarterback, bar none, than anybody on Alabama's roster. Ole Miss's first 3 quarterbacks, and I'm including Walker Howard in this list, would start at Alabama. That is nuts to think about. Ole Miss has the best running back in this game. Nuts to think about. If Trey Harris plays, Ole Miss has the best wide receiver in this game. At tight end, if Prescorn's back, and then you have their transfer that could be a wash. Offensive line, both units have a little bit of questions. The offensive unit in this game is major advantage towards Ole Miss. Now, I'm not saying Alabama can't win the game. We've seen many times when Ole Miss had the advantage, went to Bryant Denny Stadium and dropped that game. So I'm going to talk all week about how Ole Miss can win this game, and they absolutely can, but they still have to do it. And I think that needs to be the caveat that's in everybody's mind as this game moves forward. So it'll be interesting to see in this game. We're going to do keys tomorrow. We're going to do what to watch for. We're going to do why Ole Miss wins, and we're going to do crossovers with hopefully Luke Robinson on Thursday, and we're going to do one with Jake Thomas on Thursday night. And then I think we got Michael Borky, we got Jason Simmons, we got a bunch of stuff. Dalen Flowers, the regulars are going to stop by the show. This is going to be a big week, and we're going to blow it out. That is the plan. And we're going to treat it like a big week. So we're going to talk and be positive like we always are and talk about ways that Ole Miss can win this game, because I will tell you exactly how Ole Miss can win this game. They still have to do it, because on the other side of the field, there still are 5-star players and they can rise up. That needs to be understood. But this is a situation right now. We're going to go into lines this next segment. This line is strictly off Alabama's reputation. This isn't a real line at all. Oh, Alabama is favored over Ole Miss roughly the same amount that they were favored over Texas. And we saw how that went. So we'll see what's going on there. When we come back, we will get on to the week 4 lines, including this Ole Miss game against Alabama. Should be a lot of fun indeed. I'm pretty fired up. So I want to let you know that this show is brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. And now it is time for your game changer of the week, brought to you by them, the Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Jaxson Dart, and I know Jaxson Dart's been the game changer of the week every week, but he's made plays, elite level plays, Matt Corral-like plays. Much like him, Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. You know, when Jaxson Dart is running the ball and that physicality and doing what he needs to do for his team, it helps everybody else get better. It raises the level of their teammates. And that's why he's the game changer of the week. The brews are great tasting, award winning, and they beat out full strength beers in global competitions. They brew over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, golden sours, and more. You know, they're constantly releasing these limited edition experimental styles to add to their variety. I guess that's similar to like what Sam Adams does. You'll never have a hangover, and you can find Athletic in-store, online, and at bars around the country. They are simply the fastest growing non-alcoholic brewery in the U.S., so get on board. So what's your favorite Athletic brew? You know, taste them, try them out, do whatever you need to do, because you can literally walk around and enjoy that. You can find them at their store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use Locked On to get 15% off your first online order. That's pretty cool. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. It's near beer. Exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Also, the Rebels play the Alabama Crimson Tide Saturday at 2:30. The next evolution of this explosive offense should be on tap for all of us to witness. Catch every play of the Ole Miss broadcast with SiriusXM on channel 191 or on the SXM app searching Ole Miss Rebels. Locked On Ole Miss is on there as well. Now, we need to talk about lines, and this show is I already tell we're probably going to go fairly long. So we're going to start with the rest of the league real quick. You have Kentucky at -12 against Vandy. Vandy lost to UNLV. Kentucky's been a slow starter. I think take the Wildcats in that game, definitely. Auburn is at Texas A&M. SEC Nation is at Texas A&M. It's weird that SEC Nation is ignoring a top 15 matchup whenever they could have gone to Tuscaloosa for this game with Alabama. But I think South Florida kind of scared them off a little bit. Texas A&M's only 7.5-point favorite. I've talked to people at Auburn. They are concerned about their defense. I know they played well against Cal. They're concerned about their defense and A&M's offense. They've scored this year. UTSA at Tennessee. Tennessee looked like honestly Dookie against Florida, and UTSA is pretty good. They do not have Zachary Franklin. That's where Zachary Franklin came from, but they do have Frank Harris, the quarterback. UTSA is a team that you don't want to play, but they just lost to Army, so I think that 13 might be pretty safe. Charlotte is at Florida. Florida's favored by 24 points. Florida's ranked after beating Tennessee. They look pretty good. We make jokes about G5 Billy and Sunbelt Billy. Florida looked pretty good against Tennessee, but Florida always looks good against Tennessee at home. Everybody, literally everybody, has beaten Tennessee and Gainesville. Every coach, no matter how bad they are, has won every game since 2003 in Gainesville. LSU is hosting Arkansas. LSU is a 17.5-point favorite. Good grief, that's a lot of points. That either means that the gamblers are waking up to LSU being good, or Arkansas is just not what we thought they were. It'll be interesting to see what happens. LSU cannot run the ball. That's what we saw against Mississippi State. Now, LSU completely dominated that football game, but LSU cannot run the football. And that's going to be an interesting situation. I think Alabama was dead last in D1 last year in pass defense. So that maybe it means something. I don't know. Memphis is at Missouri. Missouri's favored by 8 points. Missouri just defeated Kansas State. That is pretty cool indeed, on a 61-yard field goal by Harrison Mevis. That is really cool. Missouri, everybody counted them out and was like, hey, they're just right above Vandy. No, just hang tight. I picked Kansas State. Everybody picked Kansas State because Kansas State is good, but Kansas State also they lost to Tulane last year. And they can drop games from time to time. UAB is at Georgia. Georgia's a 37-point favorite. I don't know with this offense if that's too many points. I don't know if UAB is necessarily good, but that is a lot of points. And Mississippi State's at South Carolina. And this is an interesting game. You had the Mississippi State fans chanting for Mike Wright during the LSU game. You've got me that said that Mike Wright would start the Egg Bowl. He might start before then. And they're going to South Carolina, who played Georgia pretty well and moved the ball pretty well. Spencer Rattler played a decent game. It was just one of those situations where they were out-talented a little bit. And in this game, I think this line might be at about the right spot. The last game is on CBS 2:30 Saturday. You can catch the Ole Miss hometown broadcast on Sirius Channel 191. Ole Miss currently is an underdog by 7 points. Alabama's a 7-point favorite. The over-under is at 55.5. These numbers are going to move all week. It's already dropping down. Some books, this was at like 15 points. And it was just like one of those things. Get the points while you can. Because I don't think anybody would be betting on Alabama unless you are an Alabama fan. So as many points as you could get if you were going to bet this game would be advantageous to you. But Alabama, they did not look good against South Florida. They did not look good against Texas. Back-to-back subpar performances for the Crimson Tide. And you have basically Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, who without Bryce Young beats Alabama last year. And with Pete Golding, excited to beat out. I think this game has a chance to be a little bit of a war. The question on everybody's mind going into this game is, will the moment be too much for Ole Miss? And what will Ole Miss look like, as in physically look like? I'm thinking Realtree helmets and all white uniforms. That's what I'm thinking. So we'll see exactly how that goes as well. Anyway, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hope everybody has a good Monday. Tomorrow, keys for Ole Miss's victory. what to watch for on Wednesday. We'll do the crossover on Thursday, and on Friday will be the Why Ole Miss Wins episode. And the weekend, we will do our pregame and postgame show as well. So we've got a lot of stuff, and we got a lot of guests coming up this week. Bear with us. We're going to try and figure out how to do it. The schedule might look a little bit clunky from time to time, but it's all in the name of really blowing out this week and making it as fun as possible. So hang tight for that. We'll see you as the week goes on. And of course, hotty toddy.